Real fellowship. Let's talk about real fellowship. What is real fellowship? Is church, going to church on Sunday, real fellowship? I'm not going to say it's not, but it's not what Christian fellowship is all about. Let's go to Hebrews 1:10-25. Hebrews 10:25. Not forsaking the assembling of yourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching. What day? Judgment. Paul said, I show you a mystery. Not all of us will be asleep when the day approaches. Not everyone will be asleep. A lot of people will be dead, and a lot of people will be alive when the day approaches. So it's important for Christians to fellowship as often as possible. Sunday morning service is good, but that's not the true identity of Christian fellowship. Sunday service is organized or dictated service. You go to church on Sundays, you go through the motion, Sunday school, Sunday service, listen to the choir sing, listen to the preacher preach, then you dismiss, you go home. That's not really fellowship. Our life as Christians, we are supposed to fellowship. Actually, it's supposed to be a community coming together all the time, daily. Times we living in, people have life to live, people have so much going on with children and stuff like the jobs and stuff. But if we can find any time, an hour or so out of our day, every day of the week, we need to come together, because we really supposed to be living as a community, even with the pastors. We live community. Pastors nowadays live 2 and 3 hours away from their church, away from their members. Most of you go to church now, you have pastors. Y'all have no clue where your pastor live at. Once he leave church on Sunday and get out of your sight, you don't know, you can't point, you don't have no idea where your pastor live at. Pastors want to live in privacy now. They want to live way out the reach of their members. That way, people don't know who coming and going they have. People don't see what they doing. They want to live in privacy. Don't y'all know a pastor living in privacy, it's against this Bible for him to be a leader? Given to much hospitality. Don't y'all know the pastor's supposed to lend his house to the members? If anybody take in people, it's supposed to be the pastors. These pastors nowadays have big old houses. Ain't nobody but him and his wife in most cases. Given to much hospitality. Don't you know their house supposed to be like a room and board? bring in, take in people. These pastors nowadays don't want nobody at their house. The Bible says, giving to much hospitality. What you think that is? Taking in, giving. Pastor's supposed to come last. You sacrifice your all for the good of the flock. Come together. What is fellowship, though? Pastors will use Hebrews 10:25 as a tool to promote coming to church. When the tithing get low, pastor will talk about it. They'll go to Malachi, and then they'll turn around and go to Hebrews 10:25 to use as a verse to you need to come to church. The Bible says, forsaking not the assembly of yourself together. They use that to tell y'all to come to church and show you where if you don't come to church, then you might be skipping out on the Lord. They really use that verse when they talking about tithing. Tithing looking dim. Tithing is dropping. Y'all need to come on to church, pay your tithes or something. They always gonna use that. But it's not really accurate. If we're gonna do this thing, fellowship, we do it together. Your pastor live 2 and 3 hours away from you, hour and a half. He had to drive 2 hours to the church every Sunday to preach. After Sunday, you don't see him no more. In most cases, in the good old church, southern churches, backwood churches, or country churches, everybody know where the pastor live. Pastor live right down the road from the church. In most cases, the pastor live right next door to the church. But in these big mega churches and large churches, the shepherd live his life in private. He don't want to be seen. He want to be separated. Don't y'all know that's not what a pastor, the shepherd's supposed to do? Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5. Chapter 5, verse 1. The elders which are among you, I exhort also, I exhort who am also an elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, and also a partaker of the glory that shall be revealed. Feed the flock of God which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind, neither as being lords over God's heritage, but being examples to the flock. Got to be an example to the flock. Preachers want people to wait on them, to serve them, bend over backwards to please them, do everything. Preachers use elders. Preachers have a bunch of elders on them. They treat elders like sent-outs, personal servants. Go do this, go do that. Do as I command you. Do what I tell you. You want to be a preacher? Sit under me for 25, 30 years. You got to do everything I tell you to do. You only going to preach once a year. That's what they do. use elders to do dirty work. Y'all seen that movie On the Shepherd? That was a true movie. That's a true movie. On the Shepherd. Where that preacher was using that young man, then lied on him and threw him under the bus. Threw him under the bus. And you see how the church folk rallied behind the preacher? The young man had to have a witness. He tried to throw the young man under the bus. This stuff is real in church. This is what they do. Women do it too. Women preachers. Juanita Bynum, I see how she treat her umber-bearer woman. Make her get down on her knees, on her knees, all the way down to change her shoes while she's up there preaching. That's not the spirit of God. One, you out of place with God anyway, with your big and tail, hypocrite big and tail. Then Cena always want to show somebody serving her. Sit your tail down and change your own shoes. Better yet, why did you wear them heels out here to preach? You already knew you were going to take them off. That's part of a show. They use stuff to their advantage. Ain't nowhere in the world that woman or any woman got no business doing that sort of act in public. Why the woman preacher, why somebody will preach. That's not godly. That's showing people how wicked of a spirit that you have. The woman bring the shoes out there. You can't take 2 seconds, 5 seconds to sit down and slip them high heels off and put them little flats on. She had to get down on her knees and literally change her shoes. There's some people out here with some vile spirits calling themselves preachers. The devil is showing out in them every time you see these folks. Want to make people be servants. If I was in that church and saw that, I'd tell them, sit your tail down and change your own shoes. Better you just walk around with those shoes on. It ain't gonna take you but a second to kick them heels off. You shouldn't have worn them out here in the first place. I seen Jacqueline Carr do that. They'll do that for shows. Other women do that. Wear heels out there, get the preacher, and then that's all a gimmick. That's all part of a show. Uh-oh, she really finna get into it now. Or make me kick my shoes off. Don't make me wearing a little beatbox dresses out there. Jacqueline Carr done that in the past. Little beatbox dress out there. But true fellowship. You go to work. We live in a society where we have to work. And when you go out in the world and work, you're surrounded by sin. You're surrounded by the devil on your job. Most of you that work in warehouses and other places where you have to work around people, most of them are non-believers. A lot of them might be churchgoers, but they ain't really trying to follow Christ. You go in the break room or you work on the line in the warehouse, gutter, dirty talk all day long from the women and the men. You try your best to be holy. They trying to sucker you in. Men trying to talk to you. Women trying to put you in position to take advantage of you, set you up. That's why you need to come together as often as possible to exhort one another, because you can be led away. That's what Paul was talking about right here. 10:25. It's important to fellowship on a consistent basis. Come together. If ain't no but an hour, 35, 45 minutes a day, if you can. Constant fellowship. Your pastor want to pastor churches nowadays. They don't want to have nothing to do with the members. Now, don't you know y'all supposed to be there together? The pastor's supposed to be there with his flock, the shepherd. How can you guide and take care of the flock when you not with your flock? You only with your flock on a Sunday. Maybe it's Wednesday nights. It's a lifestyle. It's not for the just come to church on Sunday, listen to the pastor, then y'all go home and you call it fellowship. Don't you know we all supposed to fellowship together, even the pastor live together in a community, farm together, raise cattle, garden, live together, not separate. Not separate. The pastor, the shepherd, the shepherd's supposed to be there with his flock. How he watching over the flock when he hours and long ways away from the flock? How he watching over the flock? That's a life he chose. You said you're a pastor. You saw the qualifications. You desired to be a pastor. You knew what it bring. What's the requirements? You want to be a shepherd? That's why the preachers they have a bunch of churches. How can y'all be a shepherd when you got a flock 1,000 miles away? You got a church here. You got a church there. You got a church here. You got a church there. That ain't God. That's not a God. That's of your own desire. You cannot shepherd flocks that not among you. The Bible say, feed the flock of God which is among you. Taking the oversight thereof not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre. You can X out a lot of preachers right here with this, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind. Neither as being lords over God's heritage, but being examples to the flock. You got to be the example. We go out here and work the field and work the garden together. We grow our food together. We tend to the cows together. We eat, we separate the food together. We partake together. Ain't no separation. Pastors want people to cater to them. Give me a jet. Every time they open their mouth and ask for something, they think they ought to get it. And that's besides getting a salary. Y'all preaching for the spirit of lucre, and the Bible say do not do it. Meanwhile, you're not doing nothing that the Bible tells you to do. The flock can't get you to come tend to them. For those preachers who don't have to work during the week, who are able to live off a salary, which the Bible forbids, but nevertheless, y'all do it. And so, since you don't have to work, and the church is paying you not to work, you're supposed to spend all your time hanging around the church or attending to the people or out there doing God's work, not out there selling books, not out there promoting the business, not out there investing in other business, not out there running around preaching at other churches. You got your own flock. You got your own flock to tend to. Why are you going tending to somebody else's flock? That's why I fell off the revivals in the traditional church and preachers. There is no need for any preachers in this country to be traveling around to other people's churches preaching. That is not fellowship. God didn't tell y'all to do that. They call it fellowship, but they getting paid. You preaching at each other church, getting paid. Meanwhile, they bypassing the streets. They bypassing their communities. I'm going to preach. I got a preaching engagement this week at somebody at church. I got a preaching engagement. Should nobody have to call you to preach? You said God's called you to preach. You preach at your church on Sunday. You got your neighborhood. What about evangelism work outside on the streets? That's your calling. I got a preaching engagement. I'm booked. Call my secretary. One booked there to preach this weekend. I'm going to my partner church. I'm preaching. That's a gimmick. God didn't ordain it. God did not ordain it. Pastor Frank Ray, out of Memphis. Him and his buddy, them Baptist preachers, Kojic, they do it. They travel from church to church preaching, conference to conference preaching, church to church. They done made this a business. Don't y'all know they out of the will of God? How many of you, how much are you seeing them out there in the streets preaching? Everything they do is about coming to the church, feeding their pockets. They hide in the church. All them preachers in Kojic, all them preachers in Baptist, in our community, Memphis, all of them, denominate, they ain't none of them out there in the streets on the weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, preaching the gospel. They somewhere held up in somebody else's church or got something going on at their church, and it's all about passing the plate. At the end of the day, that's all about passing the plate, padding their pockets, padding their partners' pockets, running the game on the church. G.E. Patterson, Dr. Frank Ray, Brandon B. Porter were some of the biggest names in preaching in Memphis. Memphis littered with preachers all over. Did you ever see them out in communities banded together, going out there preaching the gospel, going out on the Beale Street preaching the gospel, going over there at Cooper Young District where Frank Ray Church at, preaching the gospel to the LBGQ community? Nah, they ain't had nothing to do with none of it. Every time you see them, they going somewhere to preach at somebody's church. They going to preach at a conference. They going to preach at a revival. Preaching to church folk. Constantly preaching to church folk. It's out here, constantly preaching to church folk. We got something going on. It's just a money scam. I got some more video coming. I'm going to talk more about G. Patterson and his church. A lot of churches in Memphis, they ain't no good. They ain't no count. They don't even promote y'all to do community service, community work. Everything they promote is about coming to the church and giving them all your time and money. That's all it's about, giving them all your time and money. They not telling y'all we going out here this Sunday, we going to have service on the street. They ain't doing none of that. We going to have service. We going to go out here and preach in the community. We're going to go out here and take this Saturday, this Sunday, and clean up the community. They ain't thinking about none of that. No preachers ain't trying to do that. If I were pastoring church, that's what I'll be doing. Okay, we're going to bypass service this Sunday. We just going to go out, clean up the neighborhood. We're going to go out and show the president in the community. They too scared themselves. They stand up in the pulpit and preach till they preach the wall down, get all hot and sweaty. Ask them to go outside and preach. Oh, well, nah, I ain't got time for that. So I send the elders out there if we find time. They got all the Holy Ghost power. They got all that anointing, so to speak. They got all that anointing. But when you talk about going out there on the streets preaching the gospel, well, I would, but I have an engagement. Bunch of hogwash. Them jokers ain't here no nothing. I'll talk about them. I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. Y'all being pimped. These preachers won't open their houses. They got on big old fancy houses. They not willing to open their house to strangers, take in people. If anybody's supposed to do it, it's supposed to be them. Giving too much hospitality. What you think that means? Going over and beyond. Dedicating your life to the service of God. That woman Tabitha, that's what she did. Took in the sick, took in the who was in need. These preachers don't want to do that. They don't want to give up their comfort. They don't want nobody in their house. They done robbed God all the years, bought all them a house, a car. They don't want nobody in their car. Y'all got to suffer. I'm going to send them to y'all. I'm going to send them to you. Y'all take care of them.